Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Explore the Extraordinary podcast. My name is Betty Guadagno. Today, I'm joined by Katman. Katman is a psychic empath. He's the host of Eye Salon, and he's a dear spiritual friend that I've made over the last couple of months. I guess we've known each other, and Katman really helped with coming up with the conception for this podcast because he has his own, and he came to Ions and he imparted some of his wisdom on us so that we could have the most authentic experience that we could with this podcast. And so I'm really grateful to share space with you today. And we're going to be talking about all things spiritual, and I'm going to pass it over to you. And please feel free to share about who you are, how you got here, and all that fun stuff. Thanks so much for being here.
Of course. Thank you, Betty. I really appreciate you. So, yeah, we were having a really great chat before we started recording, and I think authenticity and this topic of surrendering, of spiritual surrender, are what we're really looking at today. And I was sharing with Betty that my experience of my spiritual awakening, like I've had many levels of spiritual awakening. It's been something like like Tetris, where like all the pieces kind of drop in, and it's like the spiritual awakening is happening in increments. And we all have times for us to experience our connection with oneness. I think, well, I would say most of us do. Maybe not everybody, but I'd say for a lot of the planet, we've seated in moments of getting to experience oneness and connecting into oneness. And the lovely Betty got to do that with a Kundalini awakening, and we're going to have her on Third Eye Salon, that's for sure. Um, and the way that it happens for you, the way that it happens for somebody else, it's interesting. It's so different, and yet it all comes and reconnects to the same place. And doing the show Third Eye Salon for the last 2.5 years, I like to say I've been dosing myself with other people's oneness, with their experience with oneness, with extraterrestrials and Kundalini awakenings, and all the parallel realities. And because I'm a psychic empath, I can tune into people as they are telling their story. And it's not just like I am listening and analyzing it. It's like I'm empathically on the journey with them. And that's how come I can know something is real, is because I can feel it with them. It's their connection to source opens up my connection to source. I mean, that's why we tell these stories. It's why we do these shows, right? We're all looking to come back into this understanding of who we are and why we're here. So, uh, I am going someplace specific with this, but I want to kind of give it a little background here in terms of all of us being able to wake up and open up into who we truly are. So, as I'm watching, people do this around me, and people are having these experiences, and I have them on Third Eye Salon. It became my time to give it up. And I went through a really hard patch because well, I think it's safe to say that if you don't deal with your shadows will deal with you. So I had a shadow wound in my life that had not gotten rectified. And I was just I had spackled over it. Spackled over it. I had put a nice painting over it. It wasn't there anymore. And so, lo and behold, when you do that, you create a blind spot, you create a weakness in your wall, right? And so someone was able to get into that weakness, and there was deception, and there was a complete implosion of my life, to be very brief about it, on a very core foundational level for me. And it was from this point that they were trying. I was kicking and screaming a lot, so it took longer than they had hoped. But anyway, from this implosion point where I was like, what's real now? Like all the things I believed in, who I am, how I perceived myself, how I perceived my work. Like it feels so much like betrayal, but it's a breakthrough, it's a breakdown. Like I'm just confused. I'm sort of in a tornado trying to pull myself out and come to the other side. And they had enough, and they were like, just you need to quit your job and start doing other things. You need to start working on what your mission is while you're here. And within that process of doing that, there was surrender after surrender after surrender. And in this process of surrendering, there was a reconnection to source and a remembering of my soul matrix and where my soul matrix comes from, my star family, and being able to be a conduit for celestial energy, this incredible love, this unconditional love, wisdom, and humor that comes through to reconnect us to source and reconnect us to our authentic self. And I fought and resisted, and I still have things that will come up in terms of feeling like, oh, that's a boundary, or did you like just drama, trying to have drama with God, trying to have drama with God, but you said this and that happened, and them just being like, calm down. This is a relationship. You are co-creating your life with Source, with us, and you aren't on the recipient end anymore. You're their creator. And part of surrendering is surrendering into your power as your creator, as being the creator of your life and your experience, and surrendering to your accountability as a creator. And I will say that surrender is it is the visual I get is one of those water slides where you're like, wow, like you had no idea it was going to go so fast. It was going to be so like, well, exciting, scary, wonderful, all of that. And but it's so good. So even though there are, what we're surrendering is our separation. We're surrendering our refusal to let God touch that part of us, because that part of us it's profoundly unlovable. And even though everybody else can have it, I can't have it in this particular wound, because that wound is the truth. And it's so funny to be a conduit for this loving energy and these celestial attunements, feel this love for them and say, and see them, resist it and feel it for them. And then Mike Celestial say, and you do it too. Do you remember how you used to do that? Like we would try to love you, and how you sometimes will still put up a block because you're afraid to let the love all the way in, because you can't control love. You can't force love to do what you want it to do. Love doesn't show up in a way that you get to decide, and it's going to love you in ways that you didn't think you were worthy, all over and over and over again. And you want to control it, and you can't control it because it's love. And that quality of surrender is where we can both be held in the wisdom of Source, but be held in the power as well. So we are empowered with love, and we are guided with the wisdom, and we lead that way in the world. And it's okay to trust yourself now. It's okay to trust God. It's okay to trust the world. It's okay to trust your path, because the resistance is now kind of a game. It's more of a lesson. It's more of a mirror than it is a direct experience. I feel like I have gone on into some sort of a dissertation that I was not expecting to give. Did you want to hop in and reflect on that,
Oh
Betty?
my goodness. Yes, yes. I love that. I totally agree. I was just sort of like in the background, like hitting my chest and resonating so hard. I love what you said about not allowing Source into the wound, because yeah, and I've experienced that so much, in my own spiritual journey. I'm very authentic, very vulnerable with the fact that I've overcome many addictions. And when I let go of my substance use addiction, I had a lot of things with eating disorders manifest in my life. And I thought, well, Source is willing to help me with the substances, but Source is not going to help me with the food stuff. And it was just this total insanity, like why would Source allow me freedom in one area of my life, but not the other? And it was just like an ego trick. My ego was tricking me into thinking that I am not lovable in this one area of my life. And so I can't let Source into any of it. And I love the idea of surrender. And I'm a member of 12-step fellowship, and that's the first step, is surrender. And it comes up with spirituality as well. I need to constantly spiritually surrender. I think that I know what's for my highest good, but I don't know anything. I'm just this little fraction of this much bigger thing. And I love everything that you said. So I'm curious if maybe you can talk about a little bit, what was the inspiration for you to connect with other spiritual people? Like, what was your inspiration for starting your podcast, for stepping into your whole spiritual path?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, in terms of the spiritual path, that was something that had been with me early on. It was through Christianity, but it was definitely with connecting with God. I was connecting with, Jesus or God. I was connecting with some aspect of myself, and I was having these sorts of spiritual awakenings within that context as I was growing up. And also, I remember like an occasion just sitting in algebra class, spacing off, and my mind just going out and being like, my name isn't my name. I'm something. It's like I knew I was something much different than this, and but I didn't have a context for that. There wasn't any for what I was experiencing. It was just some sort of like you know, some part of me said, "Hello, we're up here, we're over here," and I had like little like metaphysical, mystical experiences throughout my childhood. So there was always something a fascination there. Like when I was a kid, I wanted to be a witch. I was always like, I wanted to hang out with Sasquatch. Like I just like when I was a kid, I was into this stuff like since I was a kid. Like it's just been in me and with me and part of me. Um, and so and I think then it became like at a certain point where it's like, okay, you got to get grounded. You got to learn how to be physical, and how do you be here physical and present and do the work things and do the money things and the rent things and the payment things, and which I just was never very good at that. I mean, eventually I was very good at it, and then it all imploded. Isn't that funny? Now that you've mastered it, we'll take it away. But but it was just the whole thing. I feel like because my experience is that this is even though I have a memory of many, many, many lifetimes, I'm connected to many lifetimes. This is my actual first soul piercing in a physical body into this in physical world. Though I have like a library of history in my awareness. So that's what makes me so accessible and so real. But forgive me. So we're coming through this process of being able to say I'm physical, I am also spiritual. What's it mean to be a spiritual person? It's not this religion, it's these connections I've had. And because of these listening to other people's stories, it validates your story, right? Like when you hear somebody who has a Kundalini experience, you're like, oh, that's what that was. I'm not crazy. And being able to hear other people's stories and empathically tune into them. Like when I was listening to like people like Karen Swain, she was one of my main people. I would go and listen to her shows, and I would tune into the guest experience, and I was like, I'm having a deeper experience than just analyzing. Like I want to talk to these people. I want to like connect in, and these are the questions I would love to ask. And because I am empathic, people tend to feel very safe around me, and they tend to, open up and they easily share. And it's like, well, this is one of your natural gifts is that, people, as an empath, you have to be very mindful of your boundaries because sometimes people will just come up to you. If you've had that experience where a complete stranger comes up to you and just spills their beans, and that seems to be a pattern in your life where people just seem to overshare with you, and you're like, I'll hold space for you, I guess. That means you're probably an empath. You're an empath. You're an empath if that shows up for you. So in that process, I would just wanted to bring these people in. I wanted to talk to them myself. And my friend Linda Coulter Burge, who is such an amazing psychic herself, and I've been like pushing her out of the psychic closet, over the last 10 years. I was like, let's just hold hands and jump and do this and have a good time. And let's just finally do it. And so she was willing to do that with me. And yeah, it's been an incredible experience. Like I say, I've dosed myself for so many other people's awakenings that it definitely helped um, facilitate my own awakening.
I love that. Something you said, something, it sparked something for me. I'm curious if you can talk about what was it like when your own psychic abilities came to fruition for people maybe that are watching, that maybe their abilities are starting to manifest in their own lives. What did that look like for you? How did you integrate? How did you come out of your psychic closet?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we had a really great guest on named Mariah Wheatley, and she is a dowser, and she's a master dowser. She's connected to the triple goddess. Like she's just so rich and juicy and intelligent, and she's amazing. She's in the UK. She gives tours to sacred sites. So it was the thing where like I'd been using my psychic abilities on and off like, for years. And at some points I would really focus and I would really I'd even have groups and where we'd practice our abilities together. And then other times I just kind of be more in a responsive place in life and not be quite as active in that area. It was just kind of like yeah, I don't know how to say that other than, sometimes more than others, not always trusting it, learning how to trust it, it kind of never, that's it, not trusting myself. So that's how come I could always keep it like, oh, well, I'm psychic, but I don't really say that. I'd say I'm empathic, but I don't really say I'm psychic because that would mean I would have to really come all the way out and trust myself. So the penny just dropped there. So when we had Mariah Wheatley on, she is a dowser, right? So I'm like, well, I gotta get dowsing rods. I'm finally gonna spend the $12 to get, copper dowsing rods. And it's just so funny what we won't give ourselves. And so I got these dowsing rods, and it became this is what these little babies, they're also called divining rods. I call them attunement rods, but they're what allowed me to extend my empathic ability and my empathic what I call telepathy, because it's like it's telepathy, but it's done with through empathy as well. It's not just like I'm sending a thought. There's a whole vibrational tone to it. So I started to use these rods, and I was like, okay, well, I'm going to start asking what's in my highest good. We were talking about like what's in your highest good before the show. So is this in my highest good? Is it in my highest good to be on Betty's show? Okay, good. Would it be in my highest good to poke myself in the eyeball? Nope. So it says no. So that was really basic, right? So it became this thing about learning to go out and sense energies, vortexes, and then having this conversation and being able to say, I'd like to be able to connect to my higher self. Can I talk to my higher self? And then as I'm talking to my higher self, I start asking questions about my life, about, where I come from. And I start to not just get answers, but I'm starting to feel, see, and remember answers. And I've had flashes throughout my life, right? Like this, like I said, this awakening is like coming in these drips and drops. And we all have these experiences of like, that was weird. That wasn't normal. That was, that's part of your greater self coming through and saying, hello, you're connected to something else. So then with the rods, oh, and also, well, I have to say, working with Lorelei Drock, was a big deal because when I was in the process of working with the rods and reconnecting to my higher selves, she was able to give me a couple of names for my higher selves. And when she gave me those names, it unlocked this relationship with them. I got to start to explore and examine on these other levels. And then it became about learning how to collect soul fragments of myself and also then learning how to help other people to do that as well. But basically, it became this big journey where like these aspects of my ancestry, both genetic and fractal, like my other, my higher self's many incarnations, these started to turn on in my memory and they started to turn on in my experience. And so some of their abilities would come in, being able to do certain things with energy and magic and, consciousness came into it's like being replugged into your mainframe, and there's still switches that are not all the way turned on, but like it's like this thing where in this process of surrender where we're willing to give up our identity of ourself and let it be reshaped and let our personality be an extension, but more of a memory bank as opposed to who we are, then your mind starts to be able to access these other things, and you're realizing that you're connected to this greater fractal family. And then once you're connected to that fractal family, then you're just connected to the warehouse of who you really are. And so that's been my experience of coming back on psychically. And sometimes I'm turned on more than others. It's on for specific occasions for what I'm doing. So I'm not just an open antenna, but I do have to also be mindful of my energy because it is easy to process someone else's emotions and think that they're mine just on the empathic level. I hope that
What
was.
are some of the tools that you use to kind of discern where your energy stops and somebody else's begins?
A key thing that I learned this from my friend Linda Coulter Burge, is this mine? And if I can say, is this mine? And also, what's also really cool, you can do it with you don't have to do it with rods, but I can do it with the rods as well and get start to doing an immediate response. And then I can start to tune into whose energy it is, why am I carrying it, whatnot. Like this, for me, that's how I extend into the energy and figure out if there's something I need to do with it. Or if it's just not mine, if I was at the airport and there was just a bunch of people, It's like, oh, all that energy at the airport. Then I can say, is this mine? It's not mine. I know it's not mine. Is this mine? And because I'm asking, is it's mine? And the answer is no, then it starts to, I no longer identify with it as mine, it starts to leave. I mean, isn't that just how life is? If you no longer identify with a problem as your problem, it starts to leave, you know? So that's a thing I do all the time. And then, saging is huge. Sea salt baths are great. Epsom salt baths are great.
I love that. Yeah. For me, I think that it's really important, I think, to share about my own integration tools, the things that I use to cope with the changes that are happening to me spiritually, emotionally, mentally. And so when I had my experience, my whole world transformed and I couldn't find any information about what to do now. What do I do now that my whole world is totally different? Like, where are my people? Who are, where are the voices of people that this has also happened to? So I love that that's something that you do, that you're interviewing people, that you're putting yourself out there with your own experiences and you're sharing about the tools that you use. And I love the rod thing. I don't know why I've never heard of that before. Thank you for introducing me to it. That's so cool. Are
It's
you into
ancient.
any other
It's
sort of
ancient.
tools like that? Like, do you use tarot cards? Are you into?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I do use cards. It's interesting. It depends on the situation. And again, it's like, because I do attunement sessions where I do energy attunements with people, with light language and whatnot. But I also do readings. And sometimes I just open up their little zipper to the Akashic records and get in there and, like, what do they need to know? Okay, I need to tell them this. And then other times my guides will say, pull some cards. So I'm open to that. And I think the thing of learning how to also feel your energy and work with your energy, whether you're going to do yoga or Tai Chi or something physical, it's so important to get reconnected to your body. It's so important to get reconnected to Gaia. This is, what we're experiencing right now, and my my experience of this experience. It's, source energy is remembering itself by remembering, putting itself back together, saying, I am all of this. It's source is waking up within all of us. Why Kundalini is happening. It's why, people are popping open. It's because source is coming back online within us. And the ability to surrender to that and just allow it to show up in your life is what it's all about at this point. And being able to play with your energy, being able to connect with your body, remembering that Gaia is this conscious being that's an extension of source. Like, this is us returning to our sacred nature, to our sacred family, and to our sacred state. And it's going to show up however it shows up, but just be willing to be surprised and be willing to be challenged and be willing to be authentic and let people fall away if they don't get it. And because those people are blocking the people that will get it. You know what I mean? Like, you have to have that energy space open for the ones who are going to get it. And if you have other people who you're hanging on to for old time's sake, because it's the right thing to do, and you have nothing in common with them anymore, you're clogging your channel and you're doing yourself and them a disservice. And you want to go on to your next new experience. So surrender.
That message was directly for me. And I'm sure whoever else is watching might be thinking the same thing, but it's funny because before we started recording, I was like, I have a feeling that Katman's going to say exactly what I need to hear today. And that was exactly what I needed to hear. Yeah. And more surrender. How can I make space for new experiences in my life if I'm hanging on to the old ones? And I find that even with my spiritual experience. Like, my spiritual experience is my sacred experience. This is my beautiful sacred art. And I am very attached to it. And I recognize my attachment to it. And it's become so much of who I am because it's created this whole new being for me. And so I'm very attached to the story. And even that is something that I feel like I need to loosen the grip on so that I can allow new things into my life. So yeah, you said so much. I'm curious if maybe, so like on this podcast, we're opening up the conversation to all metaphysical things, after death communication, spiritual awakenings, transformative experiences, outer body experiences. And I know that you obviously have a very deep connection to things not non-physical. So I'm wondering if maybe there's a cool story that you want to share about something that really sticks out in your mind that is a greatly constructed thing that you want to share with the collective.
Yeah, well, thanks for asking. I really just like you so much. I just think you're the best. Betty, you really are just the best. So here's a thing that's it's just so weird because I'm saying this out loud. I'm gonna say it out loud. And but I'm gonna own this. So I've been connecting, part of this awakening process is connecting back into my extraterrestrial family. So on an energetic level, there have been some Palladians and Mantis showing up, and some other and some angels. There's some archangels hanging out, and some the Fae folk. There's this whole myriad of people are beings. It's collective that we're all connected to. Anyhow, long story long, the extraterrestrial beings that we think of as being alien or out there, that we think have agendas for us, that we think are invading and invasive. And or isn't that one ugly? They're terrifying. They're scary to look at. This one's really beautiful, but the mantis are hard to look at. Um, Big bugs. I hate bugs. And so they've reached out to me to initiate a project called the Compassion Project. And when that's going to get started, I don't know. I've been collecting people and collecting stories. And I've been collecting that like on the down low, just by happenstance. But the big thing they want to get across is that we're a family. We are your family. The mantis beings are primary in the creation of physical reality. If we didn't have mantis beings, we wouldn't have physicality. They are the conduits of the celestial energy into physical form. And there are so many beings on the planet that have been here longer than us. There are so many people who've been experiencing the Earth narrative longer than us. And when we make black and white snap decisions about somebody on how they look or how we perceive their behavior is because we don't understand them, because we've never got to know them, but we make snap judgments, decisions about who they are. Think about when someone has done that to us. Well, we do that to them. And they are adamant now that we wake up and realize that they are our extended family. They are our cousins. They are our kin, and we are all part of oneness. And they really are wanting to advocate. The Compassion Project is for us to have compassion for them. Because imagine, you've taken someone aboard your ship. Just imagine it's like someone's experience. They're a Zeta. Like on the other side, there's Zeta. This is Judy Carroll. She's amazing. So Judy Carroll is she's human. She lives in Australia. She's a healer, but aboard the ship, she's also a Zeta. And she's on board the ship. She's taking this nasty like implant out of somebody because it's negative. It's not for their highest good. It was done by a negative source. But she's a Zeta, so she's got the big eyes and the whole thing. So she's taking it out. The person wakes up, sees her, and screams and is horrified, repulsed by her look, just terrified by their look. Imagine like, a little child that's fallen down and you tried to pick them up and take the splinter out of their foot and they thought you were a monster. They looked at your face and they screamed because they thought you were so ugly. It's like to be able to reframe how they really are and that they are not better than us. They are more advanced in many ways, but they're not better. They're our kin. And yeah, I hope I haven't gone on too much about that, but that was something that I did not expect that to show up in my life. I was not looking for it. And they literally popped up and were like, we're going to do this and we want you to bring it out. And I was like, okay, put it on the agenda. We'll get to it. But item number, 147. But anyway, thank you for asking. And that is something that will be coming forward at some point in the near future.
Thank you for sharing. So there might be some people watching that aren't really familiar with some of the things that we're talking about. So you're talking about other kinds of beings, right? So maybe
Yeah,
you
yeah.
want to just give like the little, like a kindergarten sort of introduction to what you mean by other beings.
Okay. Well, you know what I'm going to do is, so this is a Lyran. This is an actual portrait that my friend Jason did. This is a Lyran being. It looks like that movie Avatar, right? So it's like that. So people who are in the spiritual community are like, oh, Avatar, they totally mind grabbed that from the Lyrans, or the Lyrans, depending on how you say their names. But there's a whole range of beings that have existed before humans did. And if you go back and research anything about the Anunnaki, for a long time I didn't care about ancient ETs. I was like, no, I just want to hang out with like cool ETs and go cool places. I don't care about our history, blah blah blah. But lo and behold, it turns out like the Anunnaki were instrumental in bringing humanity into how it looks and sounds and is today. And they were from the stars, and like it's just like how we think. Um, Someone has died on the other side, and we can't see them because they're across the veil. It's like that with extraterrestrials. It's like in terms of they're right there. They haven't died, but you know what I mean? People who've died haven't died, right? They're just not there in your physical direct experience. And so people who are extraterrestrials, and they still are people, they're beings, right? They have come from other places, they've had other incarnations. Source has expressed itself in a multitude of ways. We're not the only way. So once we realize that we're part of this whole lineage, it's like, gosh, it's like when atheists say that there is no God and there are no spirits or are no ghosts, and they've blocked all that out. And if you, it's the same thing saying there are no ETs, there are no extraterrestrials, or saying that they're all bad. Like, boom, you've blocked it out. You've closed the conversation. You're no longer in relationship to this greater reality. You've decided what reality is, and that might be your ego, my friend. So being open to extraterrestrials and extraterrestrial energy, it's really part of the continuum. Like the whole, like when I'm in session with and I'm connecting with, my celestial family, my, mother and aunt can show up who are deceased, and an archangel can show up, and a Palladian can show up, and we can all be chatting and having a little conversation. It's part of the same thing. So, and Palladians are if you don't know what a Palladian is, they're the beautiful Nordics who have the long hair and the model-esque cheekbones. And so but there's a range. Like here's some other nice little, like, to me these would be beautiful blue beings. I would think of them as being related to a bird energy. So all of the things that we find on our planet, all of like the animals, plants, birds, insects, these are microcosms of the macrocosm. They don't just exist here, they're representations of the greater whole. We have to think of this as like almost like an image library or a reality library, where a lot of things are stored here, but they're stored here in minute forms. They're not exclusive to here. It's more of a repository for the greater whole. So be open and be willing to be surprised, and you might just have your mind blown.
Wow. I've never thought of it that way before. Thank you for sharing that. You just opened my mind up a little bit. And I'm trying to think about, the like bugs, like how you said, like, like we're so disgusted by them. But if the bugs that we have here are representative of something larger, I wonder if there's some sort of like ancient something that happened. Like, why are we so disgusted by it here? Obviously the name doesn't help. It kind of has like a very negative connotation to it.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. I think there's a lot of agendas we could explore on other shows at other times.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I really like the idea of opening up the conversation to all of these things, because there's so much, like we live in this infinite sea of consciousness. There's so many things to grab at. And for me, and I know for you as well, we're part of a couple of spiritual communities together. And I just want to take a moment just to talk about the fact that at IANS, our groups and events, we also have sharing groups. And these are the things that we talk about, the things that you and I are talking about right now. It's a safe place for people who have had near-death experiences, spiritual experiences, outer body experiences, alien experiences. Like we talk about this huge range of things, because there is such a large range of things going on in the collective right now. And there'll be like a little link right above my head to click on it and to join our sharing groups, because it's a beautiful community. And, if it wasn't for those sharing groups, I wouldn't have met Lorelai, who introduced me to Kat. And this whole tumble effect of the squad finding each other, like the tribe finding each other. So maybe you can share a little bit about finding members of your celestial family on Earth. I know that you have this great non-physical. What's your process been like finding them here in form?
Well, I got invited onto your show. I think that was one of the things that happened. Um, it's been interesting. I'll tell you, like, I'm actually moving from where I'm at physically to another location, to Iowa to help my dad in his elder years. So I think I'm going to find a physical community there. I have not found one here in Denver. It's been the wildest thing. My community is all online. And I know people from, I mean, here's the other great thing about podcasting is I know people in England, Australia, the UK, or I said England, but New Zealand, like there's just it's just Vienna, like it's great to meet these people and have these connections and be realizing that this waking up process is happening all over the planet. So I really, I do encourage people to get involved in community, and I encourage you to create community. If you can't find a community that you enjoy, create a community. In the States, they have something called meetup.com. It's something I've used time and again to create groups. You obviously can create Facebook groups, but if you want to create something local and physical where you get to meet people, meetup.com is a great one. But the thing for sure that's not going to happen is if you don't take any movement, you're not going to be found. Like you have to be willing to open yourself up to being vulnerable, and you have to be willing to open yourself up to change, and you have to be be willing to be challenged and have some of your beliefs challenged, and um, know that love should be the anchor in the community. Look for empathic communities where they respect each other. What are your values about community? I think when you're doing this, don't just reach out in desperation, like I'm a lonely star seed and I need to find, or I'm a lonely empath, I'm a lonely, whatever it is. And lead from your wound, lead from what you deserve and look for quality of community and look for the qualities and the values that you hold being reflected back to you. So that way it's a safe space to genuinely join heart to heart. I
Wow.
feel like I just go off on these tangents.
No, that's beautiful. I can't think of a better way to end this conversation. That was so perfect. Thank you so much for your willingness to come and share and be vulnerable and authentic. I am so gassed up from this whole conversation this morning. I can't wait to see what the rest of the day holds for me. Thank you so much, and we'll have links on how people can come and support you and join your YouTube, and I'm so grateful for you. Is there anything else that you'd like to say to feel more complete about our conversation?
Oh, just that you're amazing. I just love what you're doing, and I appreciate you. And yeah, check out the links for the celebration of consciousness, and that's something that's it's a little seed that's starting to burgeoning open. I don't know what I'm saying. There's a little seed that's starting to crack open and bloom. So check out celebration of consciousness and meet us there. That's what I'll say. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Kat. And thank you so much for being here. We'll see you next time. Be
Yes, you
waiting.
will.